Amid the shadows of the Cold War, the Soviet Union sought to gain a strategic advantage on the geopolitical stage by expanding its influence. Afghanistan's geographic location, as a key link between Central and South Asia, became the focus of Soviet strategic attention. In the early 1980s, Afghanistan's internal turmoil, economic issues, and political instability under the socialist regime presented an opportunity that the Soviet Union recognized. In December 1979, Soviet forces crossed the border and entered Afghanistan to support the socialist regime. However, this action quickly garnered strong international condemnation. The United Nations General Assembly passed resolutions denouncing the Soviet aggression and expressing support for the Afghan people. Meanwhile, the United States and its allies began providing military aid to support Afghan resistance forces, rapidly turning the conflict into an internationalized struggle. Facing resilient resistance from Afghan guerrilla fighters, Soviet forces found themselves engaged in a protracted and challenging conflict. The resistance forces, backed by international support, employed guerrilla tactics that effectively eroded Soviet influence. In 1989, the Soviet Union finally decided to withdraw its troops. Nevertheless, this conflict had caused immense damage to Afghanistan, plunging the nation into a severe crisis. Following the Soviet entry into Afghanistan, the guerrilla resistance escalated. An important event during this period was the early 1980s Panjshir Uprising. This uprising marked a significant battle by resistance forces against Soviet occupation, instilling confidence in the resistance and demonstrating unwavering local opposition to Soviet forces. Throughout this enduring conflict, the resistance demonstrated their mastery of guerrilla tactics. Employing flexible strategies and constantly shifting positions, they made it difficult for Soviet forces to predict and track their movements. The effectiveness of these guerrilla tactics mired the Soviet Union in a quagmire, draining significant resources while struggling to achieve a decisive victory. Amid the ongoing conflict, the Soviet Union attempted to stabilize the situation by establishing a pro-Soviet regime in Afghanistan. However, these efforts were unsuccessful. In 1986, Mikhail Gorbachev came to power and initiated the glasnost policy, aiming to resolve the conflict through political means. This policy advocated political and economic reforms, but the situation in Afghanistan did not substantially improve. Faced with the challenges of the protracted conflict, the Soviet Union ultimately decided to withdraw in 1989. This decision coincided with the impending end of the Cold War and internal economic and political difficulties within the Soviet Union. Gorbachev's reform policies required consolidated resources, which the ongoing Afghanistan war had become an unbearable burden for. In February 1989, the formal process of Soviet withdrawal began, marking a pivotal turning point in this nearly decade-long conflict. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, which lasted longer than anticipated, escalated into a fierce war, causing immense humanitarian disaster and regional upheaval. As the Soviet troops prepared to leave, a series of events and changes further revealed the intricate complexity of the war. In April 1988, the United States and the Soviet Union reached a crucial agreement in Geneva, one aspect of which was the cessation of weapons aid to the resistance forces. This agreement served as a precursor to the Soviet withdrawal and a glimmer of hope for ending the prolonged conflict. However, the internal issues within Afghanistan and conflicts among various factions did not disappear as a result. After the Soviet withdrawal in 1992, Afghanistan descended further into chaos and civil war. Different armed factions vied for power, leading to more destruction and casualties. As former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger noted, while the Soviets departed, they left behind a fragmented and divided country. As former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev put it, Afghanistan is a deep wound. We must learn from this experience. The failure of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan not only plunged the Soviet Union into crisis but also became a significant turning point in the international political landscape. This history teaches us that war often brings more destruction, while peace and cooperation are the true paths to human progress. And that concludes this episode. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. This channel updates regularly each week, so if you'd like to continue following, be sure to subscribe. Goodbye.